Hello, everyone. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to Founders Lab Live. Before we begin, I want to tell you one thing. This is not going to feel like a normal class. Nobody is going to ask you to memorize definitions, nobody is going to give you pages of notes. Instead, we are going to build something together. Imagine that by the end of this program, someone asks you, "What did you do today?" And you smile and say, "I built my own startup today." Sounds exciting, doesn't it? So, the best part is you don't need to know coding, you don't need to be a business expert, you don't even need to have an idea right now. All you need is your eyes, your brain, and your curiosity. Look around you. Maybe you have stood in a long canteen queue. Maybe you've forgotten your homework. Maybe you have seen someone struggle to find good study notes. Maybe your parents, grandparents, in fact, find it difficult to use a mobile app. These may look like small problems, but every big company started by solving a small problem for someone. Today, we're going to train our brains to notice those problems. Then we will think of better ways to solve them. And step by step, you will build your own project from scratch. Don't worry about making any mistake. In fact, making mistakes is part of learning. The only rule today is be curious, try everything, have fun. So grab your notebook, keep your imagination ready, and let's begin. Because every great idea starts with someone saying, "I think this can be done better." All you need today is curiosity. Let's begin our journey as founders by finding a problem worth solving. Remember, you do not need to be a coder, you do not need to be a business expert, you do not need to have a startup idea already. All you need today is curiosity. So, now that we know where we are headed, let's take a quick look at what we are going to do in the first session. Think of today like building a Lego model. You don't open the box and magically have the finished model. You build it one step at a time. If you skip a step, the next one becomes much harder. That's exactly how Founders Lab Live works. Every session builds on the one before it. So, what are we going to do in this first block? First, you are going to find a real problem, not a problem from a movie, not something that sounds fancy. A real problem that you have seen in your own life, your school, your neighborhood, or your community. It could be something like that, annoys you every day. It could be something that wastes time, or maybe something that could simply be done better. Once you have found that problem, we will learn how to describe it clearly using something called a "how might we" statement. Don't worry about the name for now. It's just a simple way of writing a problem so that it becomes easier to think of different solutions. Finally, we will use AI to help us learn more about that problem. Imagine you're curious about why students find it difficult to manage their homework. Instead of guessing, AI can help you discover whether students in other schools face the same issue, what solutions already exist, and what opportunities might still be left. Now, let's talk about why we are doing all this. Have you ever tried solving a puzzle without looking at the whole picture? It usually doesn't work very well. Building a startup is the same. If we don't fully understand the problem, we might spend hours building something that nobody actually needs. That's why today we are slowing down before we speed up. We are going to understand first and build later. That one habit makes a huge difference. Now, here's how we will do it. We will use a simple activity called the 5 whys to dig deeper into a problem. Then we'll use AI tools to explore it from different angles. Finally, we will write one clear problem statement that will guide everything we build in the rest of the program. By the end of the session, I don't expect you to have a perfect business idea. I expect you to have something even more valuable, a real problem that's worth solving. And once we have that, the exciting part begins. So let's get started and train ourselves to notice opportunities that most people walk past every single day. Before we jump into activities, I want to show you a simple map. Think of it like Google Maps. Whenever you're traveling somewhere new, what's the first thing you do? You check where you are. That's exactly what this slide is. It's our map for the entire journey. We are going to follow a process called design thinking. Now, don't let the name scare you. It's simply a smart way of solving problems that is used by product designers, startups, and companies around the world. Let's walk together, right? The first step here is empathize. That's a big word, but it means something very simple. It means understanding people. Imagine your friend says, school bags are too heavy. Instead of immediately saying, let's invent a flying bag, you first ask questions. Why are they heavy? Which books are causing the problem? Does everyone feel the same way? What happens because of it? You're trying to understand the person's experience before thinking about solutions. That's empathize. The second step is define. Now you have collected lots of information. Your job is to write one clear problem. Not 10 problems, not 20, just one that really matters. It's like a detective pulling all the clues together and saying, aha, this is the real issue. And that's exactly where we are today. Our goal in this session is to complete these first two steps. We are not building apps yet. We are not designing logos. We are not thinking about business names. Those come later. Once we truly understand the problem, we move to ideate. That's where all generate lots of creative ideas. Then comes prototype. We'll turn our best idea into something people can actually see or try. Finally comes test. We will show it to others, collect feedback, improve it, and make it even better. So remember this journey. Understand, which is your empathize, define, imagine, build, improve. Every great product follows some version of this process. Today, we are focusing on the most important part, understanding the problem really well. Because when you build on a strong foundation, everything that comes next becomes much easier. So let's begin with the first step. Let's understand people before we try to solve their problems. Awesome. Now it's your turn to become a detective. Have you ever watched a detective movie? At first, they only see a small clue. But instead of stopping there, they keep asking questions until they discover what really happened. That's exactly what we are going to do now. This activity is called the 5 whys. And don't worry, you don't have to ask exactly 5 questions every single time. The idea is simple, to keep asking why until you reach the real reason behind a problem. Let's try one together. Imagine someone says, the school canteen runs out of food by lunchtime. That's definitely a problem. But is that the real problem? Let's find out. Why does the food run out? Because lots of students buy food as soon as the canteen opens. Okay, why do they all rush to buy food early? Because they're worried their favorite food might be gone later. Interesting. Now let's ask again. Why are they worried? Because nobody knows what's still available. Now we are getting somewhere. Why doesn't anyone know? Because everything is managed manually. There's no simple way to check what's available before going to the canteen. And now we have reached something much more useful. Instead of saying the canteen runs out of food, we have discovered a deeper problem. Students don't have a simple way to know what's available or order in advance. See the difference? The first one is a symptom, the second one is a problem we can actually solve. Now it's your turn. Think about your own life. It could be at school, at home, while traveling, during sports, or even while studying. Pick one problem, just one. Now, let's start asking yourself, why does this happen? Write your answer, then ask, why does that happen? Keep going, don't rush. Sometimes the fourth or fifth answer surprises you. You suddenly realize, wait, that's the real problem. And that's exactly what we are looking for today. Remember, we are not searching for a brilliant success or full, business idea. We are searching for a problem that's worth solving. Take your time, be curious, and once you have reached what you think is the real reason, share it with the person sitting next to you. You might be surprised how differently someone else sees the same problem. All right, pens ready? Let's begin the 5 ways challenge. You have done something really important already. You started with a problem and then you kept asking why. By now, you should have a much better understanding of what's really going on. But here's the question: how do we turn that problem into an opportunity? That's where three simple words come in. How might we? HMW. These are probably the three most powerful words you will learn today. Why? Because they don't tell us what to build, they invite us to explore. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine I say, students find it difficult to get good coaching. That's a problem, but it doesn't help us think about solutions. Now, listen to this. How might we help students in small towns access quality coaching without traveling long distances? Can you feel the difference? Suddenly, your brain starts thinking. Maybe online classes, maybe local mentors, maybe AI tutors, maybe weekend learning centers. Notice something important. The sentence doesn't tell us the answer, it simply opens the door to many possible answers. And that's exactly what we want. Now, let's look at three different versions. The first one says, how might we improve education? Is that a real problem? Of course, but it's so huge that we don't know where to begin. It's like saying, let's improve the whole world. Great goal, but where do you even start? Now, look at this one. How might we build an iPhone app for grade 10 canteen ordering? This has the opposite problem. We've already decided the solution. What if an app isn't the best answer? Maybe a QR code works. Maybe a smart display board. Maybe a token system. Maybe something nobody has thought of yet. As founders, we don't want to lock ourselves into our one idea too early. Now, look at the third one. How might we help school students pre order canteen food so nothing runs out? Now we are talking. We know who we are helping. We know that we are trying to achieve, but we are still open to lots of different solutions. In fact, that's what makes a great how might we statement. So here's a simple formula you can remember. How might we help someone achieve something better? Simple. Now it's your turn. Take the problem you discovered during the 5 whys activity. Ask yourself 3 questions. Who has this problem? What are they trying to do? What's stopping them? Now turn those answers into one sentence that begins with, how might we? Don't worry if it's not perfect. Write your first version. Read it aloud. If it sounds too big, make it smaller. If it already sounds like a solution, make it more open. Keep improving it because this one starter, the sentence, in fact, is going to guide everything you build for the rest of the workshop. And here's one thing I want you to remember. Great startups don't begin with a perfect idea. They begin with a really good question. And a how might we statement is exactly that, a great question waiting for a great answer. Perfect. So far, you have identified a real problem, used the five whys to understand it better, and written uh, your how might we statement. Now comes something really exciting. You're going to work with AI. But before we begin, I want to clear up one very common misunderstanding. Some people think AI does all the thinking for you. It doesn't. Think of AI like a team of experts sitting around a table. Each expert has a different job. You won't ask your cricket coach to teach chemistry, and you won't ask your science teacher to coach your football team in general, right? So the same is true for AI tools. Each one has its own strength. Let's meet our team. First is ChatGPT. Think of ChatGPT as your brainstorming partner. I know many of you would be using. Let's say your problem is students forget homework deadlines. You can ask ChatGPT, what different startup opportunities could come from this problem, right? It might give you ideas you hadn't even thought about. Its job is to help you think wider, not to give you the final answer. Next is perplexity. Imagine you're trying to convince someone that your problem is real. They might ask, really? How many people actually face this problem? Instead of guessing, you use perplexity. It searches the internet for facts, reports, and statistics. Maybe it tells you that millions of students struggle with time management. Now you have evidence. Founders don't just have opinions, they back them up with facts. Now let's meet Claude. Claude is likely a really good editor. You give it your how might we statement and it helps make it clearer. Maybe your sentence is too long, maybe it's too broad, maybe you have accidentally written the solution instead of the problem. Claude points those things out and helps you improve your thinking. Finally, there's something called anti-gravity. This one has a very interesting job. It challenges your ideas. Imagine you're looking at a problem from only one angle. Anti-gravity says, what if you're looking at it differently? Sometimes that's where the best startup ideas come from. Not because you found a new problem, but because you saw the same problem in a completely different way. Now, here is the important part. These tools are not competing with each other or with one another. They're working together. Think of them as members of your startup team. First, use ChatGPT to explore different possibilities. Then, use Perplexity to check whether the problem is actually real. After that, use Claude to improve your how might we statement. And finally, use anti-gravity to challenge your assumptions and see if you have missed something important. See how each tool has one clear job. That makes working with AI much easier. And one last thing before we start. Don't copy everything AI says. Ask questions, challenge it, improve its suggestions because you are the founder. AI is your assistant. The best founders don't use AI to avoid thinking, they use AI to think better. So let's open our laptops now and start building with our new AI team. Awesome. You now know what each AI tool does. But here's a question. Have you ever opened ChatGPT and then spent 5 minutes wondering, What should I type? You're not alone. The quality of AI's answer depends a lot on the question you ask. A good question usually gets a much better answer. That's why we have already prepared a set of prompts for you. Okay, we call them prompts. Think of them as smart starter templates. Yes, you don't have to memorize them, you don't have to write them from scratch. You simply copy, paste, change a few details, and you're ready to go. Let's quickly see how they work. The first prompt is for ChatGPT. Your goal is simple here. Take your problem, paste it into ChatGPT, and ask it to show you different ways of looking at that problem. Maybe you only saw one opportunity. ChatGPT might help you discover three or four more. Sometimes your best idea is in the first one. Next comes perplexity. Here, you're no longer asking ideas, you're asking for proof. For example, if you think students struggle with managing homework, can you find data that shows this is actually a common problem? Can you find research, new articles, reports, statistics? The stronger your evidence, the stronger your startup idea becomes. Now move to Claude. Take your how might we statement, paste it in, and ask Claude, can you make this clearer? Maybe your statement is too broad. Maybe it's too narrow. Maybe the user isn't clear enough. Claude can help you polish it. Remember, good writing often comes from rewriting. Finally, use anti gravity. This is where things get interesting. Ask it to challenge your thinking. Maybe you have focused on students. What if parents actually have the bigger problem? Maybe you have focused on technology. What if the real issue is communication? Sometimes looking at the same problem from a different angle leads to a much stronger startup idea. Now, here's one habit that great founders develop. They don't jump randomly from one AI tool to another. They follow a process. First, explore, then validate, then improve. Finally, challenge your assumptions, one step at a time. And here's my final tip: don't stop after the first AI answer. Ask another question, then another. The best conversations with AI happen when you're curious. Remember, AI gives you information, you provide the information. And when those two work together, amazing ideas can happen. All right, let's copy paste, experiment, and see where your curiosity takes you. Fantastic. You have learned the process. You have discovered a problem. You have written your how might we statement, and you have met your AI team. Now it's time to put everything together. Think of this slide as your game plan. Just like a treasure hunt, you don't run in random directions. You follow the clues one by one. That's exactly what we are going to do. Let's walk through the 5 steps. Step number 1 is find the real problem. Start with the problem you chose earlier. Now use the 5 whys. Keep asking why until you feel you have reached the real reason behind the problem. And don't rush. Sometimes your fifth answer is completely different from your first one. Step number 2 is explore with AI. Once you have found the root problem, open ChatGPT, ask it to show you different ways of looking at the problem. Maybe you have only thought about students. ChatGPT might point out that teachers or parents face the same challenge too. The goal isn't to choose a solution yet. The goal is to see more possibilities. Step number 3 is check the facts. Now it's time to become a researcher. Open perplexity. Find out if your problem affects lots of people. Can you find facts, statistics, reports? If the answer is yes, that's a good sign that your problem is worth solving. Step number 4 is write your best HMW. How might we? Now, bring everything together, write your HMW statement, then ask Claude to help improve it. Don't worry if your first version isn't perfect. Almost every great idea becomes better after a few improvements. Step number 5 is look at it differently. Finally, use anti-gravity. Ask it to challenge your thinking. Could there be another user, another angle, another opportunity? Sometimes one small change in the question creates a much better startup idea. Now, take a step back. Notice what you did. You didn't start by building an app. You didn't design a logo. You didn't even think about making money. You first understood the problem, then you explored it, then you checked the facts, then you improved your thinking. That's how founders work, one step at a time. So here's your mission: complete these 5 steps carefully, don't skip any. By the end of this activity, you won't have just have an idea, you will have something more valuable, a well understood problem that you're ready to solve. All right. Your founder journey officially begins now. Let's get started. Great job, everyone. Take a moment and give yourself a small pat on the back. An hour ago, maybe, a few minutes ago, many of you walked into this workshop with no startup idea at all. Now look at what you have accomplished. You have observed a real problem. You've asked better questions. You have dug deeper using the 5 whys. You have explored different possibilities with AI. And you have written your own how might we statement. That's real progress. Now, before we move to the next block, let's do a quick quality check. Think of it like checking your paper, maybe, backpack before leaving for school. You don't want to realize, halfway through the day that you forgot something important. Let's go through the checklist together. First, do you have a real problem? Not a topic like education or sports, a specific problem that real people actually face. If yes, fantastic. Second, have you written your how might we statement? Remember, this sentence is going to guide everything you build next. If you haven't written it yet, this is the perfect time. Third one is read your HMW statement once. Ask yourself, can someone understand it really? Can they tell who has the problem, what they're trying to achieve, why it matters? If the answer is yes, you're doing great. Fourth one is, can you explain your problem in about 30 seconds? Imagine a friend asks, what's the startup about? Could you explain the problem clearly without reading your notes? If you can, that means you really understand it. Finally, do you have at least a few facts or pieces of evidence that show this problem is real? Remember, good founders don't just say, I think this is a problem. They can always also say, here's why I know it matters. Now, if you're missing one of these things, don't worry. This is not a test. This is simply a checkpoint. Take a few minutes, go back, improve your work. Strong foundations make everything else easier. And if you have checked every box, congratulations. You have completed the first and one of the most important steps of building a startup. Because before creating solutions, you learned how to understand a problem. That's a skill you will use again and again. Whether you build a startup, create a school project, or solve everyday challenges. In our next block, things get even more exciting. We have spent this session understanding the problem. Now it's finally time to think about possible solutions. I'll see you in the next block. We'll begin turning your problem into a real startup idea. Congratulations, you have officially completed block 1. That's a big achievement. Now you might be thinking, but I haven't built an app yet, or I haven't made a website, or I haven't started my business yet. And that's completely okay, because today was not about building, it's about understanding. Think about what you have done. You started with something that simply bothered you. Maybe it was a long queue, a study problem, something at work or in a community. Instead of jumping to a solution, you slowed down. You asked questions. You kept on asking why. You looked for real cause. you checked whether other people face the same problem. And then you turned all of that into one clear how might be statement. That's exactly how many successful, startups begin. Not with a brilliant idea, but with a problem they truly understand. So what's your biggest achievement today? Not an app, not a logo, not a business plan. It's something even more valuable. It's you now have a problem worth solving. And that's the foundation of every great startup. Now, let's take a quick look at what's coming next. In block two, we are starting generating lots of possible solutions. You're going to learn that there is never just one answer to a problem. We'll explore different ideas, compare them, and discover which ones have the greatest potential. Then, in the following blocks, you will continue building your startup step by step. You will design your business model, create your brand, build your first version of the product, and finally present your startup idea just like real founders do. So before we move on, I want you to do one small thing. Look at your HMW statement one last time. Read it slowly. Ask yourself, is this a problem that I would enjoy solving? If your answer is yes, then you're ready for the next stage of your founder journey. Remember, big companies don't start big. They start with one person who notices a problem and decides, I'm going to do something about it. Today, you've taken that very first step. So take a deep breath, be proud of what you have achieved, and let's move on to block two, where we will begin turning our problem into exciting ideas. I'll see you there. Thank you.